many Australians, it's a popular getaway spot. A small nation of some 150,000 people scattered over 80 small islands in the South Pacific. Tourists, an easily recognised species anywhere, come to Vanuatu hungry for the ultimate holiday. And the cruise ships which dock at Port Vila are always welcome, even on a Sunday. But the tempting goods in the duty-free shops aren't for the locals. Not in a nation where the average income is around $700 a year. When the locals, or as they call themselves, Ni Vanuatu, go shopping, it's more likely to be in a market like this, where they can afford the basic necessities. Even here, they need to count their vatu, the local currency, carefully.
Under vatu. And the broom, how much? So that's 200 vatu. There you go. Thank you very much.
When Vanuatu became independent in 1980, the country's major source of income came from just one commodity, copra, the white fleshy inside of coconuts. But in the last 10 years, the world market price for copra has dropped by a staggering 75%, economically shortchanging the aspirations of the entire country. Not so long ago, this was a cashless culture. People didn't need money to buy food and shelter. But this is the 20th century, and in a country where most villages still don't have electricity and every drop of kerosene is imported, money has become a necessity. Even for basic things like medical supplies and school fees. The temptation is to sell whatever you can. But if Vanuatu is to have a sustainable prosperity, it can't afford to plunder its natural resources. There is an alternative, and it's one of the strangest combinations of nature in the Pacific. Cows amongst the coconuts. They were originally introduced to keep the grass down on the coconut plantations, to make the coconuts easier for the pickers to find. But it turns out that Vanuatu's cattle produce some of the sweetest meat in the world. It's a very different business to the way we do things in Australia. In Vanuatu, most of the cattle are raised by small landholders like Jean-Baptiste, with as little as 40 beasts per farm. And cattle are only one part of the business, along with chooks and copra.
Buluk emi mokut long copra, from buluk emi no katumas wokang. Mo you put fanis lo first lo buluk, fanis time you finish all fanis round. So buluk emi stop, you look at good one all grass or kakai buluk. So everything was same. After you leave it. Not too much work, more time you sell and buluk, you will good fat.
Beef has already become the country's second biggest earner and is now a major player in Vanuatu's push for economic independence. But there are environmental dangers. Overgrazing and excessive land clearing are the biggest threats. That's something Australians know quite a lot about. David McFarlane heads a $2.8 million Australian aid program to help Vanuatu avoid some of the environmental mistakes we made here.
You cannot stop people from clearing land in Vanuatu, but the most powerful message that we can give is that by rehabilitating and upgrading the productivity of existing areas, that's environmentally the most positive thing you can do.
The key to the whole project is pasture improvement, trying to grow more nutritious grasses and produce finer cattle. More than 60 grasses and legumes from CSIRO's Australian Seed Bank are being tested under controlled conditions at this research station near Port Vila. It's a kind of smorgasbord taste test for the cattle. They simply amble around the different grasses, nibbling delicately at the ones they like best. Young farmers take details of the cattle's preferences.
S2, Sebi grass. Listen.
They also examine the plant's nutritional qualities and how well they stand up to heavy grazing. The best results have already been put to work under real conditions, like at this former coconut plantation on the island of Malakula. The new grasses and legumes are chosen to actually improve the quality of the soil. They fix nitrogen, the vital trace element which enriches the earth and nourishes growing plants. Most of the planting is done by hand, very hard work, but it's an investment that'll pay off. They'll get at least 30 years' food for the cattle with hardly any more input.
Mi some man only companies only want mi soy molkata plo gracia mi look olkata only come only look na only like him mi ko mi talem only planem mo nawya mi look one man statem nawya mo mi happy plo mi save helpem nar pala man mo plo planem crash plo mem back again.
The cattle not only grow fatter, they grow faster as well. And that means farmers can get 2 to 3 times as much meat from the same amount of land.
Come on.
Vanuatu will never compete with Australia as a beef producer. By the turn of the century, they expect to be exporting about 4,000 tonnes a year. Not much when compared with Australia's exports of over 600,000 tonnes. But in this cash-strapped economy, the income from beef will make a major difference. It will help pay for the infrastructure to develop the small nation, and it'll generate sustainable jobs. The beef industry by itself isn't going to solve all of Vanuatu's problems, but it's an important step in the right direction. Here, more than anywhere, economic development is essential, and sustainable development the only real path to the future.